Massive tankers of the Shadow Fleet waited silently, ready to take on millions of barrels of oil, when something unexpected appeared on the screen of a Nebo-M long-range VHF radar station far to the south. Over 70 faint radar signals, small, low-signature objects, were heading toward Russian airspace. Their source stretched almost 1,000 kilometers, and the total estimated payload exceeded 3 tons of explosives. At the Leningrad Oblast Air Defense Command, alarms sounded as confirmation came from the 91N6E Big Bird surveillance radar. The foundation for this mission had been built months before in a planning room in Kiev. The 1,000-kilometer range alone was challenging, but the greater obstacle was the Russian A2ID defense network, the most layered and complex air defense barrier in existence. Russian generals remained calm. This was exactly the kind of event their systems had been designed to counter. Russia's 3-layered defense structure activated smoothly. The 92N6E gravestone radars of the S-400 systems around St. Petersburg began tracking targets one after another. At lower levels, Pantsir S-1 systems responded with heavy fire, filling the night sky with thousands of 30mm rounds. Yet the incoming assault was not random. It was a deliberate deception plan designed to pull Russia's defenses away from the real target, the port of Primorsk. Waves of decoy drones were sent towards small towns, Zelyask, Tosno, Pokrovskoye, and Usmino, as well as several districts near St. Petersburg. The purpose was to force Russia to concentrate its best S-400 batteries there. When a young lieutenant in Gachinsky confirmed, "Sector clear, all targets destroyed," the report passed upward until the generals were convinced of victory. But that sense of triumph was their greatest mistake. The Russians had been drawn into a trap designed with meticulous precision. Of the more than 70 drones that took off, 35 AQ-400 scythes were used as bait, while 40 others made up the real strike force. At the center of this group were 15 UJ-26 Bober ER drones assigned to attack the port of Primorsk. Every technical detail had been calculated to perfection. The standard Bober's range was too short for the 1,000-kilometer mission, but the extended range version, equipped with additional fuel tanks and optimized software, could complete it with a 40-kilo warhead. Supporting them were electronic warfare units, Banshee 7 drones built on the same long-range platform. These carried jamming pods and antennas instead of explosives, designed to escort and protect the strike team all the way to the target. The AQ-400 scythes were chosen as decoys due to their plywood construction, cheap, easy to produce, and nearly invisible to radar. Just after midnight, the operation began. Over 70 drones lifted off from scattered locations in Ukraine, flying low under radar coverage, following rivers and forests, guided only by preloaded terrain maps. Several were lost to crashes and malfunctions, but such losses had been anticipated. Once they crossed into Russian airspace, concealment was no longer necessary. Coordination was. As expected, when Russian radar networks detected the scattered swarm, the system automatically locked onto what seemed to be the main threat, the 35 scythes heading for St. Petersburg. The S-400 batteries launched dozens of 48N6 missiles, destroying the cheap decoys in waves. To the Russians, it was flawless defense. To Ukraine, it was the first calculated sacrifice in a massive strategic gambit. While Russia celebrated the destruction of wooden decoys, 40 other drones slipped across Leningrad Oblast. There began a deadly duel between them and the Russian Pantsir and Buk systems. Near Volosovsky, a Pantsir battery locked onto a UJ-26 Bober, its radar data clear and confident. Yet, a nearby Banshee 7 responded immediately. It identified the X-band frequency and flooded it with interference so strong that the Russian operator's screen turned white. The lock vanished. A burst from the twin cannons came too late. The drone was already gone. This pattern repeated all night. The Russians were fierce, but their focus scattered. 33 drones were eventually destroyed over the region, but it was a victory Ukraine had budgeted for. Each drone that fell opened a gap for another to slip through. From that chaos, 7 specially modified UJ-26 Bober ER drones survived, each carrying 40 kilograms of armor-piercing explosives, and reached the final defense line. These drones were designed not to shock, but to cripple. By 4:45 a.m., the Primorsk port's own Pantsir battery detected 7 low, fast signals closing in. It reacted too late. Missiles fired in panic streaked into the dark sky, but the attackers had already split into 2 groups. 3 aimed for the main pumping station. The others went for the tankers waiting at the dock. 1 drone was intercepted a few hundred meters from impact. The rest continued. 2 of the Bober drones struck the pumping station directly. 1 hit the control center with a thermobaric warhead, creating a massive internal explosion that tore the building apart. The second hit the pipeline manifold, severing the arteries of the port. Simultaneously, 4 drones locked onto 2 massive tankers, the Kapitan Lob and Sergei Gorskov. The first hit Kapitan Lob near the bridge, destroying electronics. The second ignited one of its oil tanks, unleashing fire. The other 2 struck Gorskov, one at the engine room, one at the loading systems. Both ships burned. The strikes also hit 2 Aframax-class tankers, Kusto and Kailun, part of the Shadow Fleet. Within 42 seconds, multiple explosions rocked the port. The pumping station collapsed, the control center short-circuited, and the port entered a full emergency shutdown. Fire engulfed both tankers, spreading uncontrollably. Primorsk turned into an inferno visible for miles. Hours later, Russia's defense ministry claimed that 221 Ukrainian drones had been shot down and that all attacks were repelled. But satellite images told a different story. The port was devastated. Primorsk handled roughly 20% of Russia's seaborne oil exports. Each of the destroyed tankers carried 700,000 barrels of oil, and together, the damage amounted to billions. The attack had cut into a vital artery of Russia's war economy, halting a daily export worth nearly $80 million. That morning, St. Petersburg's Pulkovo Airport entered emergency diversion, rerouting flights amid chaos on the radar. The airspace was clogged with wreckage and false returns. This confusion was part of the plan. Russian operators kept their eyes on St. Petersburg's skies, while the real strike came from the sea. Technically, Ukraine had achieved 3 major breakthroughs: maintaining extreme range, saturating radar networks with decoys, and using electronic warfare to create false targets that confused even advanced systems. Drone fragments recovered later confirmed sophisticated navigation and deception software. The deeper revelation was strategic. Despite Russia's immense defenses, its S-400 grids, Pantsir batteries, and radar networks, the attack exposed vulnerabilities born of rigid thinking. The systems were oriented outward, expecting NATO-style threats, not a swarm from within its own perimeter. The timing of shift changes and atmospheric conditions opened a small infiltration window, and Ukraine exploited it perfectly. The attack came from beyond and burned everything inside. Even the most powerful radars, limited by Earth's curvature, could only detect the low-flying Bobers in their final moments. The window for interception was seconds long, too short to react. By dawn, Primorsk was a ruin of flame and twisted metal. 2 giant tankers burned side by side. The port's infrastructure crippled, Russia's data channels filled with false success reports, while social media flooded with images of fire. In the end, it wasn't the costliest weapons that won, but intelligent coordination, timing, and audacity. Ukraine had shown that in modern warfare, victory belongs not to those with the largest arsenals, but to those who wield them with precision. That night, a 1,000-kilometer-long gambit brought a superpower to its knees.